Hello and welcome to House of Cult. My name is Alessandro, and with me is Ariel Salsa, the owner and founder of the Pretty Cult. Today, we are so stoked to welcome Anthony Martinez, the frontman of the Orlando, Florida-based Dark Divine. Thank you so much for joining us, Anthony.
Thank you for having me. Excited to be
Yeah,
on.
absolutely. How's the day going so far?
It's going good. We just wrapped up a music video shoot, and I had to drive from Punta Gorda, Florida, to Orlando, I rode with my drummer, and it was about a 3.5 hour drive altogether.
Oh,
Something
damn.
crazy.
Oh, wow.
Because you guys are based in Orlando, yeah?
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
Punta Gorda is basically the farthest thing away from civilization, plus give
Okay,
or take 5 miles.
right on.
Awesome.
Very
Well,
cool.
thanks again for, after a long drive joining us.
Yeah.
And we're just gonna dive right into it with some questions we got for you. So
Heck
we
yeah.
like to always start at the beginning. Obviously, as we just discussed, Dark Divine originated from Orlando, Florida. We would love to know, kind of how the band came together, some of your earliest influences, core mission, creative vision, kind of when you guys first formed.
Yeah, so we started off obviously in our separate kind of local to the area bands. I had posted a cover on YouTube just on a whim, just for fun, and that's when I was reached out to by our original guitar player to join Dark Divine. I posted a cover of "Reincarnate" by Motionless in White, and yeah, so that's how they kind of found me. We all just sort of found each other through the internet, one way or another, word of mouth of like, oh, I know this guy from this band. I opened up for my guitar player and drummer's old band with my old band a long time ago. And yeah, it's just been kind of this crazy sort of, we just developed through shows and the internet, and it just kind of came to fruition. As far as like any core mission or any goal, like we're just sort of spooky kids at heart. We
Yeah.
love all things like
Yeah.
horror, Halloween. I mean, he was a skeleton in his old band, and he's kind of the real reason that we all started going really heavy into the makeup and really heavily into the visual aspect of things. I feel like we were all kind of just the most visual component of our previous bands, and we all just kind of came together to just celebrate that and just push this really like spooky atmosphere.
That's awesome.
Love
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
Of
we love the
course, we'll
spooky over here.
Yeah, we'll definitely touch on a lot of that stuff for sure.
Please,
Um,
please.
yeah. I'm actually just curious. I always like to know this, like what local scenes are sort of like as you're getting your band started. Like Orlando, Florida, kind of an interesting scene, in terms of
Yeah.
Florida. Maybe when I think of Florida for certain, scenes, maybe in heavy music, like there's obviously like there was a big scene in Tampa, bit of stuff in like Tallahassee, obviously like South Florida had a bit of a hardcore scene as well too. But what was sort of the Orlando scene like, growing up and playing shows and starting to form this?
Yeah, it was, I mean, it really has been kind of a renaissance since like obviously when like COVID kind of wiped out shows for the longest time,
Mhm.
it kind of just did like a hard reset in the scene where like these bands emerging, and especially like Tampa, Orlando, there's just been this kind of just this boom of really, really great talent because they've had 2 or 3 years to develop, what they're trying to do. And yeah, I was very blessed to be one of those kind of emerging artists that came out of that sort of just sort of like the dark ages of sort of performing. And um Dark Divine really is sort of like a child of that sort of time where we weren't able to do really anything. So once we were able to do it, we were just kind of diving in head first. And I think a lot of bands, to shout out my girlfriend's band, this band called Not Enough Space,
Yeah.
and they're another band who they just kind of like they went through that sort of period of not doing a whole lot and then just developing over time, just going headfirst into just really cool stuff. I definitely think that just Florida overall is just a really good place for music, really good place for live music, especially because every venue almost has their kind of core scene, but then there's just this general scene and appreciation of and I love going to like all of the local shows and everything, just to sort of see every aspect of what music can kind of provide.
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of jumping off that, we were going to ask this later, but you mentioned your girlfriend in Not Enough Space. You actually are going to appear on their new single, Eye for an Eye, which is set to drop, I believe, next week.
Yes.
What was sort of that process like? Was that your first time getting to actually collaborate with her, like on
Yeah.
like a
Well,
first release song?
so I used to be in Not Enough Space a long time ago. I was the original guitar player, And
Okay.
so I left once I started doing Dark Divine stuff. And yeah, so it was just kind of this like tongue in cheek joke of like I'm back in the band. But yeah, and it was a really cool thing because obviously we've been very close, like my band Dark Divine, we've been very close with Not Enough Space, just through knowing each other on a personal level, but also, we're also signed to Thriller. We're also signed, which was a really cool thing to watch happen. And it just kind of felt like if I was gonna do a feature, I would want it to be more than just sort of like just to do it. You know what I mean? There's a really cool personal connection and a really cool personal association between obviously myself and Not Enough Space. So I just think it was kind of poetic that that would be my first feature.
I love that. And that makes a feature just hold so much more weight and meaning and
Yeah,
significance, you know? And you always love to hear that when like there's sort of like in a local scene, there's like the best friend bands, you know, the bands that
yeah,
are
for
like came
sure.
up together and everything like that. And like the
It's not like you're
unity.
just kind of getting a big artist to feature just for the sake of it. There's like a camaraderie and you're just kind of
Exactly.
building each
Yeah.
other up. And it's beautiful. I love it.
Yeah, that's incredible. Yeah, just, kind of shifting into, your guys' records and everything. Your debut album, Halloweentown, was definitely a breakout moment for the band and put the band on the map. Looking back, what are your reflections on that record and how do you think it sort of laid the foundation for what followed with Deadly Fun?
I think that it planted a lot of necessary seeds.
Mm.
Obviously we had the aesthetic kind of together, but it hadn't been fully fleshed out quite yet to a point where we can kind of like make creative theming. Like Deadly Fun was sort of like a circus. Halloweentown was just sort of an all around, all encompassing appreciation for everything spooky. It was very general, not super like specific or nuanced. And I think that kind of just set this foundation for us to where we can now play with it a little bit. With Deadly Fun, we went sort of into the circusy vibe, or at least aesthetically. And it all kind of stemmed from this baseline. It trying to set us as a quote unquote spooky band. Like it was the first song we ever released was Halloweentown, and it just sort of kind of it just established what we're about, who we are, and everything that we do from there on out, regardless of the nuances of it. It's kind of it stems from this foundation that really is kind of an expression of us and as people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so cool to see what you did with Deadly Fun because it not only avoided the sophomore slump, that a lot of times bands are very worried about experiencing. It very much was an evolution of the sound and really felt like such a level up for the band.
I
What
appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely. Looking back on that now, because now you're obviously that record is, close to 2 years old now. Sort of, what are your
Damn, it really is.
reflections? Yeah, it's getting close to that, and I'm sure you're probably already heading towards, thinking about what the third LP might be. Sort of what are your reflections on that? Were there any lessons learned from that process of that record?
I think definitely it's funny you mentioned the sophomore slump. We definitely it was the writing process for that, at least vocally, was a really long process because up until that point, I'd only really ever been in local bands before that only ever really did 5 song EPs
Yeah.
before, moving on to other things. And so that sophomore slump kind of did hit. It was the first time I ever had to be like, all right, here's everything I think I'm capable of right now. And now I can't do any of it. Now here's
Yeah.
10 songs that I have to do. Uh, all with all that touch on, not even touch on, but expand on stuff that we've done. How can you dig deeper? And so it really was a challenge. And even with the stuff that we're writing now, it's just trying to find what is an extension of what happened before it. Um, so it definitely brought me out of my comfort zone, but I kind of like that. I think that that's a huge lesson I learned is just embracing being out of your comfort zone as far as writing goes. Um, and it really, yeah, just keeping things moving and not
Absolutely.
overthinking things as well. Because
Yeah.
that definitely would happen a lot. Is if you sat with a song for too long, you ended up hating it,
Mm.
and just keep things moving.
Yeah, it's almost as if like if you didn't have the pressure and instead were just complacent, the record wouldn't have turned out as good as it did. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
for
Like,
sure.
yeah, absolutely.
No, you need that stress to
Yeah.
kind of make it what it could become, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and what kind of were the central or emotional, themes and narratives you were really looking to explore on Deadly Fun? What kind of headspace were you in during that like writing and recording process?
I definitely think a lot of the songs kind of center around. Um, like the theming of the record is spooky, but they also touch on the songs touch on, sort of emotional themes in terms of like mental health, anxiety, relationships, stuff that stems from relationships and that kind of thing. So it definitely sort of it was just sort of like an all-encompassing thing within this lens of we're also a spooky band. I definitely was,
Yeah.
I was going through some anxieties and stuff with obviously that being a sophomore record. With that, I was pulling from that. I was pulling from past relationships, and really trying to make something that people could place their own lives onto.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And then the recently released deluxe edition of Deadly Fun features two new tracks as well as two reimagined versions, including a synthwave remix and a cinematic kind of reinterpretation. What inspired those like alt versions, and what was the intention behind revisiting those songs through a different lens?
Honestly, just to have fun, just to have some fun with it. Like by that point, the
Yeah.
record was written. We had obviously done the two new tracks, and we just wanted something else just for us. I definitely would consider myself like a metal singer, metal vocalist. So I sing and I scream, but very rarely do I have a chance to just sort of really play into that sort of orchestral. Like I grew up as a band kid, so like I love anything that has really cool composition, and that cinematic version really gave us kind of an avenue to explore that. The synthwave version of Drown was just sort of like a fun thing to do, just because a lot of my guys really love that style of music, and we wanted to just see what our flavor of that would look like. Maybe that's an extension. Maybe that could be explored upon in the next record. Maybe we can
Mhm.
pull stuff from that soundscape. But yeah, those two songs were just sort of like for the members.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I got to ask, like, what did you play in the band growing up?
I was a trumpet player.
Very cool. Okay.
A lot of
I
fun.
was a snare player in the
Hell yeah.
marching band. Very fun. Good times, I think that it's really important. I think any kid that's discovering music, I think it's so important to play in like a high school marching band or like jazz band or anything
Oh
like
yeah.
that.
And in a lot of cases, it's sort of their first performances, and they kind of
Yeah,
get a taste of that. Broadcasting what they're working on, and like to an audience.
for sure. Do you ever consider playing some trumpet on some future
I
Dark
want to
Divine song?
so bad.
Yeah,
I really, really want to. It's finding out where it would be. I have no idea, but we joke about it. But if the opportunity arises, I would love to do. I haven't touched trumpet in a minute, but I would love to knock off some rust and throw some spooky metal trumpet.
absolutely, dude. Yeah, for sure.
My brain, sorry, as you were talking about that, just went to like, I don't know why. I just imagined some like the concept being like almost like New Orleans and like New Orleans at Halloween
Ooh, like that
and
voodoo
like
kind
Ooh,
with
of
yeah, that's cool.
like a voodoo, like a maybe the trumpets like an intro kind of thing, and then we go into like, what Dark Divine's known for, like rock song, but it just gave me like, yeah, like maybe like a voodoo, dark,
damn.
spooky
That's a
New
let it be
Orleans
known.
vibe.
Let it be known if that happens. That's a really good idea. So if we end up doing that,
Yeah, hey, feel free, I'll be honored.
Your
there you
check's
go.
in the mail. Yes,
Yeah,
for
your
Yeah,
check's
sure.
in the mail.
my royalties.
And
Uh,
kind of touching on that cinematic remix of Cold, and your, apparent love for like theatrics and visuals. If Dark Divine had the opportunity to score any film, classic or modern, what would it be and what kind of atmosphere would you aim to create?
I would love to be in the same vein as sort of that John Carpenter soundtrack. We definitely in stuff that we've written that's not released, so shush. But we definitely explore some stuff that could be in a John Carpenter film. And I
Absolutely.
Heck
just
yeah.
love that kind of incorporation of like modern sound effects and song, kind of just textures within an orchestral environment.
Abs-
Um, yeah.
Very cool. Yeah, and I know we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but like we said, we're, almost 2 years removed from the release of Deadly Fun. Where do you see the music heading next, sonically?
Well, we've been in the writing studio, and I don't know when this is going to be released, but I can confidently say that we have a good chunk of stuff uh, planned out and written. So I definitely know what the next chapter of the band is going to sound like, and it is going to be amazing.
Hell
It's
yeah.
I would say it is the best stuff we've written so far.
That's amazing.
Ooh,
Would you
I'm
say that
excited.
also like the fact that Dark Divine has hit the road so hard since the release of Deadly Fun, has that sort of informed your writing process as well too?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think interacting with other vocalists and interacting, I've been able to meet some of our influences and just racking their brains, and just kind of obviously we're signed to Thriller. We have an amazing team around us, and just kind of ping ponging ideas back and forth with a whole bunch of people that just love music and love to do the thing. Yeah, it's absolutely influenced how I write, how I go about writing, like how like the environments that I write in. And it's cool to just hear stories from people who've done it, longer than me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. That kind of goes into my next question about touring. Over the past year, you've obviously toured with acts like Motionless in White, Ice Nine, Amir, among others. What have been some like standout or takeaway moments that you've had from those tours?
Well, Apocalypse Fest was a huge one because that was it was just a one-off show, but it was definitely the biggest show we've played. That I can consider. Like you can't really prep for that kind of an environment where it was a whole bunch
Mhm.
of people of the same mindset of yourself.
Yeah.
Motionless, like we share a very similar fan base of just people who love all things Halloween horror, and a lot of people really did know who we were from like at that show. So it was just a very welcoming environment. It was in an arena, which it's when you're a kid, that's the kind of stuff you dream about when you're like a kid. You're like, oh, I'm gonna play an arena and
Yeah.
I'm gonna do the
Yeah.
flashlight thing. But to actually see it in front of you, it's it's it shows kind of the progress you've made over the course of your career. It's just the fruits of your labor are just kind of right in front of your eyes. Um, but yeah, like I literally have a photo from that as my computer wallpaper.
That's
It's
awesome.
just something that I guess I just love looking at it because it reminds me of one of the happiest feelings of my life.
That's so cool. And that was in their hometown, right? Like it was in
Yeah,
Scranton and
it
everything.
was in close to Scranton.
That's really cool. This is probably like a very generic question, so I apologize. But where did that love for all things Halloween or kind of originate within you? Because I'm also just thinking too, like being from Orlando, I'm imagining you went to like horror nights a lot when you were a
Yeah.
kid, like for sure.
I mean, I still go. We
Yeah.
definitely I love haunts. I love Halloween Horror Nights. I've just always loved horror movies. Halloween is always as a kid growing up, it's always been the one season of the year that it felt different. Because obviously there's the change in the seasons, there's just an atmosphere shift in the fall season, cut change of the leaves or whatever. I have friends up north, and I have family up north, so we go and would see the leaves change color and that kind of thing. So it's I just love the environment. I love the sights, sounds, smells, the tastes. It's very like it has its own sort of ambiance that I just sort of resonate with a whole lot. And the same thing with my band. Like we've always just even before we discussed what Dark Divine was going to be aesthetically, any conversation that wasn't about music was always about Halloween Horror Nights, horror movies. And it just kind of was who we were as like individuals, and it just naturally seeped its way into the texture of the band.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like kind of jumping off that too, what would you say were some of the most pivotal like horror movies that have had a direct impact on your music? Like obviously you have a song called Terrifier, which is incredible. And clearly it plays such a huge role. Like what are some of those most important ones? Maybe in terms of just inspiration, but also visual direction as well.
Yeah, I mean I'm a huge Texas Chainsaw fan. We have a song called Runaway that kind of pulls
Mhm.
from, being chased by a chainsaw. Well, not a chainsaw, but a person holding one. And I would say I'm a very big Trick or Treat fan because Trick or Treat has always been just sort of like the it's not even so much a horror movie, it's just a Halloween movie. It's just an all-encompassing celebratory movie of the holiday. And so
Mhm.
that's kind of what I wanted Halloweentown to be. I wanted it to just be like this all-encompassing anthem for people who love the season. Um, and you could ask anybody in my band, and they'd give you a different answer as for pivotal horror movies, but those are definitely two for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's funny. I actually live about 2 minutes away from the Michael Myers house here in
Really?
South Pasadena. And I don't know if you've ever been out to that area before.
No, I haven't.
Oh, dude, you got to check it out. It's awesome. Like they have a full museum in there and everything. And then, obviously like
We have
LA
been.
is huge for that too.
They do have in LA. We've been to. They have some Halloween store. Which is called Halloweentown.
Halloweentown, yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
so that was a fun little tongue-in-cheek moment for us. But we've been to on tour. We toured through Texas, and we went to the gas station they filmed Texas Chainsaw at, and that was really cool. That was a really cool experience. I want to go back. They have a little emporium there as well.
Very cool. I also just want to ask too, like I was talking to this about another artist recently on the podcast, I'm pretty sure. How would you sort of rank the three Terrifier movies? That's a thing that I've been having this discussion with a lot. I want to get your take.
It's interesting. So I'll rank the three movies, not so much the short,
No, yeah,
because
yeah,
we
yeah.
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 Um, I like Terrifier one. It perfectly establishes what Art the Clown is about, but I don't think it's the best movie. I
No.
think Terrifier two is the I think Terrifier 2 is the best film,
Hmm.
like as a movie all encompassing. And then I think Terrifier 3 is the most fun movie.
Yeah, I
You know
would.
what I mean? I feel like how Terrifier 1 just sort of establishes, this is not, this isn't, your mother's clown. This is a scary motherfucking clown. And so I think Terrifier 2 actually provides some lore behind the actual movie. It provides like some characters that aren't just Art the Clown to really resonate with.
Yeah,
Um, and then Terrifier 3 is just because we all love to watch Art the Clown do stuff.
absolutely. It's funny. I got to interview David Howard Thornton
Really?
a week before Terrifier 2 came out. And it's just so interesting because like he is like the sweetest, like funniest guy in the world. Like
I
you,
want to talk to him. I just want to get coffee with him and rack his brain about stuff.
he's like truly like probably one of the nicest people I've ever talked to. Like you just can't even believe that he can tap into such. But then again, like you watch the movies too, though, and you're almost like sometimes rooting for Art the Clown. Like he is
Oh,
so
of
funny.
course.
Like
Yeah, I feel like David Howard Thornton is his like he provides so much of the character art,
yeah,
like just through his like kind of whimsy, I guess you could call it.
yeah, of course.
Yeah, we love to throw some fun questions in here, especially when we have guests on that are like really into Halloween and horror. So one of the ones we came up with was, have you had a direct encounter with the paranormal or experienced anything unexplainable that still sticks with you?
So I have a friend in Orlando who she is very kind of in tune with that sort of thing, and she can
Mhm.
kind of feel shifts in, you know, whether or not your place is haunted. And yeah, she walked into my house and looked around, and as we left, she said, by the way, your house is haunted as fuck. And I'm like, what do you mean? So I've never physically seen anything, but it's been referenced to me that my house is haunted, or whether or not like that's a danger to me or not. There is, I guess, something in my house. So I guess we'll find out what that means.
Maybe it's like a younger, more playful spirit, and that's why like it. I mean, I'm not to. I've had a few experiences, but I'm not probably in tune like your friend is. But like maybe
Mhm.
that's why it's like been okay with you because it doesn't like mean any like harm towards you or anyone. Maybe it's more of like a younger, like playful type spirit or something.
Absolutely. Which that's fine.
Yeah.
Playful spirit, haunt all you want. That's just,
Is
it'll
that
add some
something?
character to my biopic or something.
Yeah. Is that something you ever want to sort of seek out, like as a band? Like, obviously, there's been so many stories of bands recording in like haunted mansions. Like, I believe like Nine Inch Nails did Closer in a haunted mansion in New Orleans, I'm pretty sure. Various different bands have recorded in these. Like, I think some people have even like recorded I could be making this up, but like kind of like in the Sharon Tate house or something like that. Like there's a lot of
Yeah,
different locations. Is
Um,
that something that you would ever consider doing for a Dark Divine album?
absolutely. I would love to do something like that. We've played in this place called I think it's called Thompson House, which
Mhm.
is a haunted house that was converted into a music venue. And we're gonna be playing at the Rave in
The
Milwaukee
rave.
pretty soon. And that's
Yeah,
I don't know if they still let people go into the pool room or not, but we're gonna definitely check that out if
that's
we can.
awesome.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's any spooky location. I'm not too afraid of taking anything home with me, so I'm all for it. I know people would shudder at that statement, but I just think it would be very interesting to see all these sort of. I would love to visit, Annabelle and all that kind of stuff. It's really interesting. Like the history behind all that stuff is very interesting to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just a couple quick more questions. We
Yeah.
touched on the collaboration you're doing with Not Enough Space, but beyond that, like are what would you say would be sort of your other dream collaboration that you could do as an artist, but also, the dream tour lineup that you feel like would be the perfect package? Like obviously you got to play with Motionless in White for
Yeah.
their huge show, but what does that sort of look like to you?
I think we're at a point in our careers now where we are like we do know a lot of our influences personally, and it's really cool. Um, and I think the camaraderie there would make for really cool features. Obviously, it would be cool to have a Motionless and White feature. It would be cool to have like an Ice Nine Kills feature, which we technically do. No Escape has Ricky on it,
Hmm.
from Ice Nine Kills,
Mm.
and that's really awesome. As far as dream tours and collabs go, I just think any band that sort of goes above and beyond visually and just kind of expands on that spooky like essence, I'm all for any sort of collab. Just because it looks cool. It looks cool. It feels cool. It feels right. Um, makeup bands aren't super super common anymore. So, uh, any band that likes to go above and beyond and ruin the venue sync is they're all right with me.
Yeah.
I know there's a
What
band.
the venue sync.
Oh yeah, venue sync, venue shower. Get a complaint to our
Yeah.
tour manager. Um, but yeah, definitely like there's a band called Glass Waves who they're really sick. I've been talking to their bass player a little bit. That'd be a really sick band to tour with because I just love their look, their sound. They're not super like spooky, but they do the makeup thing, and they're just kind of like a modern take on it, which I really love. But yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and kind of jumping off the makeup element too, what sort of is your inspiration when you guys are putting together like your visual presentation on stage? Like anything from films that you're directly taking inspiration from?
Not necessarily. I definitely just kind of do things.
Yeah.
Um, I just sort of do whatever feels right in the moment, and sometimes I mess it up. Sometimes I do something really cool. I think the makeup just sort of has a natural progression with however I'm feeling in the moment. I'm developing my skills as a makeup artist personally, whenever I do it. So sometimes I like to take a chance. Uh, we do have an amazing makeup artist named Kristen who does Robbie's skeleton a lot, and a lot of the makeup we have done in our music videos. And she's killed it. She's definitely helped kind of elevate what we're capable of just by giving us a really cool, reference point for when we do it ourselves. And yeah, it just kind of is an extension of whatever we're feeling. If we want to try something new, it's very spontaneous, especially on the road.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely.
That's sick. Yeah, I was gonna ask if you guys had a makeup artist, and which you do, but that's also awesome that you do it on your own. But looking ahead to 2025, what can fans expect? You did kind of say, you're working on some new writing. I also saw you guys are going to have a upcoming tour, I think, here really soon with TX2.
Yes, yeah. So we're doing
Yeah,
a
we
tour
love
with Ice Nine
Evan.
Kills and Hail the
Mhm.
Sun and TX2, and then some routing shows in between those shows with TX2 as well. It's gonna be really fun. I'm super excited for this tour.
That's awesome.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, we TX2 has been a very champion for Pretty Cult, and we love them and love
Oh
Evan
yeah,
and stuff. He's always been super super nice. So
he's a sweet guy. He called
um,
us right after we announced the tour just to kind of touch base and get a feel for the camp, and no band has really ever done that that we've toured with, just to kind of like catch a good vibe right off the rip, and he just seemed very welcoming. So I'm excited for the run.
Well, yeah, Anthony, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. This has been awesome and just really appreciate you taking the time and super stoked for what's coming next from Dark Divine. And it's been
Thank you so
great
much.
chatting horror, chatting the band, everything. Is there anything you want to leave, listeners, just any kind of message or anything you want to shout out?
Yeah. So we're doing the Ice Nine Hell the Sun TX2 tour, TX2 routing shows. We have Summer of Loud Fest with Parkway Drive, Beartooth, I Prevail, and we're also doing Incarceration.
Oh,
So we're
right
super
on.
excited for all that.
oh hell yeah.
Yeah. So we have a lot coming down the pipeline. Expect some new music, which I feel like is a given.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
we are in the process of finishing up, getting ready to release some stuff. So we're very excited, and we're glad people haven't forgotten about us. It's been like 9 months since we released a song, something, or it will be, and we're just excited to get back into it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much, Anthony. Just have a great rest of your day. And yeah, it's been great chatting.
Awesome. Thank you so much.